What if I told you that the heaviest burdens in your life aren't actually heavy? What if the weight you've been carrying, the stress, the pressure, the feeling that everything is working against you, isn't coming from your problems at all? It's coming from something else entirely, something you can actually change starting today. Stay with me, because by the end of this story, you'll never look at your problems the same way again. Once upon a time, in a quiet mountain town where the morning smelled of pine and wood smoke, there lived a boy named Rohan. Rohan was not lazy. He was not unkind. But he had one habit that slowly poisoned everything around him. He resisted life. When it rained on the day of his school trip, he was furious. When his bicycle got a flat tire, he sat on the road and cried. When his best friend moved to another city, Rohan locked himself in his room and declared the universe unfair. Every problem, no matter how small, became a war Rohan felt he could not win. One autumn, Rohan's grandmother came to stay with him. She was old and quiet, with silver hair and eyes that looked like they had seen 1,000 storms and survived every one. On her third evening, she found Rohan sitting on the porch, arms crossed, staring at dark clouds rolling in from the hills. "Another storm," he muttered. "Of course." His grandmother sat beside him without a word. She reached into her bag and pulled out two things: a small clay pot and a wide open wooden bowl. She placed both in the yard just as the rain began to fall. Within minutes, the clay pot was full, overflowing, spilling water chaotically onto the ground. But the wide wooden bowl simply held the rain, open, calm, still. "Which one is suffering?" she asked. Rohan looked at the pot, fighting the rain, unable to hold it, losing everything over the edges. Then he looked at the bowl, wide, still, receiving. He didn't answer, but something in his chest shifted. His grandmother spoke. "The rain does not change, Rohan. It falls the same on both. But the pot fights what it cannot hold. The bowl simply becomes large enough to carry it." She looked at him. "You have been living like the pot. Every problem fills you up and spills over into anger and despair. But what if you chose to become the bowl?" That night, Rohan lay awake listening to the rain against his window. The same rain he had cursed just hours before. This time it sounded different. Not like an enemy, like something neutral, something that simply was. And for the first time he asked himself, what if the problem was never the rain? The next morning he woke up and made a quiet decision. Not a dramatic declaration, just a small, private choice. He would try to become the bowl. It didn't happen overnight. Old habits never die that fast. There were days he slipped back into the pot, days when frustration boiled over, when a bad grade felt like the end of the world, when loneliness crept in and he wanted to shut down. But every time he came back to that image, the clay pot overflowing, the wooden bowl open and still. And slowly, gradually, Rohan began to change. He stopped fighting the things he couldn't control. When the weather ruined his plans, he adapted. When school got hard, he leaned in. When friendships tested him, he listened more and complained less. People noticed, not because Rohan announced his change, but because calm people draw others in.
His classmates started coming to him with their worries, as if somehow he had answers. He didn't really. He had just stopped adding his own noise to theirs. One afternoon, months later, Rohan was walking home in a downpour. No umbrella, soaked through, and he was smiling. Not because the rain was pleasant, but because he realized it didn't have the power over him it once had. He whispered something to himself as he walked. The storm didn't get smaller. I just got wider. My friends, here is the truth this story is trying to hand you. Life is not going to run out of rain. Challenges will keep coming. At work, at home, in your relationships, in your own mind. That is simply what life is. But you are not a fixed container. You are not the clay pot with its rigid walls. You can grow. You can expand. You can become someone who holds difficulty without being destroyed by it. The goal was never to have fewer problems. The goal was always to become someone larger than your problems. So the next time something hard lands in your life, before you fight it, before you blame the world, before you sit on that road next to your flat tire and declare everything unfair, ask yourself one question. Am I being the pot or the bowl? If this story reached something inside you, share it with someone who needs it today. One person, that's all. And if you want more stories like this, stories that don't just entertain but genuinely change how you see the world, subscribe and stay close. The best ones are still coming.